Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Right Guys podcast, and the Democrats are absolutely falling apart. And now your hosts, Josh Hammerling and Max McGuire.
Welcome back. Another edition of the Right Guys podcast. My name is Max McGuire here with Mr. Producer Josh Hammerling. First episode in a couple days. Mr. Producer Josh was out of town, and I just didn't have enough time to produce and do everything on my own. But Josh is back. Happens from time to time. And Josh, I woke up this morning, and I do what I do most mornings, which might be because I secretly hate myself. I woke up and I watched Joe Scarborough.
Oh, why? I mean, you know, we can get you help. We can get you the help you need.
I didn't watch it for my marching orders, right? I'm not one of these leftist assassins who watch these shows to see who we should try and take shots at. I look to see how crazy they're going to get. And it's interesting. Last week, I almost fell for a little bit of the propaganda.
Really?
Like, oh, Harris is surging. Harris is surging. There was a moment where I just felt down.
Yeah.
And I was like, I hate reading this. But then I realized that they're liars and they're full of shit and they make it up as they go along.
Yeah.
So before we play what Joe Scarborough said today, which is absolutely 100% designed to try and get a third Trump assassination attempt. Actually, we haven't even learned everything about the attempted bombing. They found bomb materials last week. So I guess this would be the fourth attempted assassination attempt.
Well, it's been swept under the rug.
Yeah. But, actually, no. Then again, the way that the shooter wrote his letter, which we're going to read the letter that Ruth left, it suggests that maybe he had tried previously, because this was a letter that was written before his assassination attempt. And he, in the letter, wrote that he failed and apologized for failing to assassinate Trump. So we don't really actually know what number assassination this attempt is.
Yeah.
But all we do know is that the Democrats seem eager to add to that tally. And if they thought they were winning, they wouldn't keep kicking this hornet's nest. They wouldn't keep trying to rile up their crazies. But they know that they're not winning. And Josh, I don't know if you saw this morning, the New York Times poll that dropped. Absolutely stunning. The narrative that Kamala Harris had completely won the debate.
With Donald Trump, right?
This is a New York Times poll. This is no conservative poll. Interestingly, the New York Times poll has lined up almost exactly with Rasmussen polling.
Wow.
So my suspicion is that the New York Times and Rasmussen are not allowing the fake eagerness of leftists to skew the polls, and they're not skewing the methodology themselves.
Yeah.
Right. But here's what the New York Times said. New York Times polled Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, found that since the debate, Donald Trump has been surging. He's been surging there. In Arizona, pre-debate, the New York Times poll had Kamala Harris at +5. After the debate, Donald Trump in the same poll is +5. That's a 10-point swing.
Yeah, that's massive. Is it shocking?
The swing is shocking, right?
Yeah.
The swing is shocking. In Georgia, where Kamala Harris has had multiple rallies where she's bussed people in, we've talked about this.
Oh, yeah.
Interestingly, they kept the rally just short enough to allow the bus drivers going back where they need to go to do it all in one 8 to 10 hour shift. In Georgia, there's been no change. They had Donald Trump up 4 before the debate, and Trump is still up 4.
Wow.
So the Kamala Harris victory didn't do anything in Georgia. And you look at the polling average, Trump is going up. So other polls are showing the same thing. And in North Carolina, where New York Times had Kamala Harris up 2 before the debate, same New York Times Siena poll has Donald Trump up 3 after the debate, which is a swing of 5 points.
Yeah.
A swing of 5 points.
It's beautiful to see. I mean, we predicted that it wasn't going to happen. She's just a media creation. That's all Kamala Harris is a media creation. And we see it because the polls are starting to reflect the emptiness of her answers. I don't know what interview I was watching, but she couldn't. It was the one with Oprah where she's had the husband and wife on, and she's answering the question about what you're going to do to make the economy better. And she gave some platitude about
Comes from a middle class family.
Yeah,
I swear, if I hear her say I come from a middle class family, when she lived in Canada
I
in a
know.
wealthy neighborhood,
Went to a French school.
yeah, a
Canadian
French
school,
private
right?
school, yeah.
Yeah,
This narrative, I'm from a middle class family.
it's not real.
She was born to two professors, visiting professors, and then her mother moved her to Canada, and she spent her formative years in Canada in a wealthy neighborhood, attending a French school.
Yeah,
And so at the very least, she's not American middle class.
right.
At worse, she's completely right.
Yeah,
No, everything's scripted from her. Everything's scripted. Everything's from a teleprompter. Everything's rehearsed, and she looks the absolute worst when she doesn't have a pre-scripted answer. But Josh realized that she said a lot of crazy things, including this one.
Trump is an existential threat to our democracy and our most fundamental freedoms. Remember the chaos, the division, the attacks that took rights and liberties from the American people. We cannot allow that to happen again.
So that was
unbelievable.
scripted. That's scripted.
Absolutely.
I put that up a little earlier than I planned to put it up, but that's scripted. So you look at the polls with Kamala Harris plummeting in the swing states. Like all the things that shows Kamala Harris having success come from national polls. And while we're going to have a nationwide election in early November, it is not a national election in the sense that it's not a national popularity contest.
Yeah.
We have the Electoral College, and whoever wins the most Electoral College delegates are going to be named winner. Well, I mean, technically you have to have 270, but there's a weird hypothetical where RFK Jr. could grab a couple, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah, let's not hope in that direction.
That's not going to happen. So the national polls show her ahead because she has such huge leads in places like California, New York, Massachusetts, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you actually look at the states that are going to decide this election, which we just showed up on the screen, she is failing miserably, right? Donald Trump is gaining ground in New Mexico. He probably won't win New Mexico, but he's gaining ground in New Mexico.
Sure.
You can tell the way this election's going by where Kamala Harris is sending her delegates, right? She can only do so much. So the people who are delegates, the surrogates, people who are surrogates, they're trying to reach more places than she can reach. And in the last week or two, we've seen her surrogates go to New Hampshire. We've seen her surrogates go to Minnesota. We've seen her surrogates go to Virginia. These are 3 states that are supposed to be in the bag. We have a month and a half until the election. And the fact that she's sending her surrogates to states that are supposed to be safe. We've talked about it on the show. There have been not 1, not 2, but 3 Virginia polls. I haven't seen lately what the polls are looking like, but there were 3 Virginia polls that showed Donald Trump within 3 points of winning the state.
Yeah.
Within margin of error, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we know how this is going. She's begging for a second debate. If she thought she won the first debate,
why ask for another?
Right? Why ask for another?
Yeah.
And I'm going to pull her ad. I recently bought cable again.
Wow.
We're YouTube TV. Little kept secret. We've been doing a political show, and I haven't had cable. I haven't had cable television for, I want to say 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, I only really watch some of the news channels, and I watch what the 24s are doing, but that's it. And I can get those anywhere now.
Yeah.
You know?
And it just shows how little of a need you really have for cable television. The fact that, like, I've helped put on this show and even Conservative Daily without actually watching the news.
Yeah.
Just by consuming. Yeah, you don't have to. You don't have to.
Because it's just propaganda. I mean, what we present to you is actual news, and at least we're analyzing it as we go. All you get from MSNBC, CNN, Taylor Swift, and all of the leftist celebrities out there is just propaganda.
Yeah. So since I bought cable, I've started getting ads, and I'm shocked that they are actually doing ads in Texas. The Kamala Harris campaign seems to believe that Texas is in play. The polling suggests it is not. is very much not in play. But if she wants to spend that money in Texas, they might you raised so much money. Come to Texas. Go ahead.
Yeah. Spend it all in Texas.
Spend it all in Texas. Well,
Right.
don't
If
do
you know
that,
she's
'cause
not in Colorado.
if they spend every cent in Texas, it might actually accomplish something. But you want to spend millions and millions of dollars, go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it. I've also seen Trump ads because they're trying to make this Colin Allred guy, this Democrat running against Ted Cruz.
Mhm.
They're trying to say Ted Cruz ran away from the hurricane, ran away from the snowstorm.
Mhm.
They're hitting back and saying Colin Allred doesn't even know the difference between boys and girls. It's great. Yeah. So these are ads. These are ads that are going on TV. And I kid you not. Well, let me just play it. The Trump ad that's running for Kamala Harris is stunningly effective.
It's taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners, every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
It's hard to believe, but it's true. Even the liberal media was shocked Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners and illegal aliens.
Every transgender inmate would have access.
Kamala's for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Now,
Fantastic ad.
does that ad work in Maryland? Probably not.
Maybe not.
Does that ad work in Colorado? Probably not. But in
California,
Texas, where that ad is running side by side the Ted Cruz ad. Let me see if I can find the Ted Cruz ad.
yeah.
Ted Cruz.
I mean, and she denied all of it too, right? And the media was shocked in that commercial. It's funny to hear. I mean, they knew it, but yeah, it's what happens when the truth comes out.
The media said that it was fact check false.
That night, right?
And then had to correct it. Said, actually, no, shockingly, this is real.
She did say it, yeah.
Let me see if I can find where's the Ted Cruz boys and girls.
I shouldn't laugh at it, but wow. Oh, yeah, I'm looking at these polls, right? And if they're going to be throwing money and those kind of ads into some states, I mean, which ones are you targeting? Arkansas? You're probably hitting Arizona with that one. You're probably hitting Georgia, Iowa. You know what I mean? You're probably going after Missouri, Montana. Montana's probably in the bag. I probably wouldn't spend too much in Montana.
No, they're spending for the Senate race in Montana.
Yeah, and that's the big one there. I mean, Ohio. I mean, it feels like the bag, but I think it might be you're going to run it in Oklahoma. You're going to run it. Actually, you're not going to run it in Oklahoma because that's almost a 16-point Trump win there. I mean, you got to put in the places where you know it's close, right? Pennsylvania, where it's 49-47 right now. You might play that one in Pennsylvania, right? You might play that one. I mean, even in Texas at 50-46, which is pretty crazy that Trump's only up 5.5 in Texas.
But here's the thing. Well, here's the thing. That 5% is millions of people, right? So it's not like a couple of percent in Rhode Island that might be like 20,000, 30,000 votes, right? It's millions of people.
Yeah, Texas is a
millions of people. Trying to get this.
Well, you might even get away with that in Wisconsin right now because it's so close. Like you got to think about where to put that money.
Listen, with targeted ads, absolutely. Targeted ads, you run it for conservatives, middle right leaning, absolutely. Yeah. Here's the Ted Cruz ad that's running.
Ted Cruz, and I approve this message.
Boys and girls, they're different. And somehow it's become controversial to say boys and girls are different, but they are. Colin Allred supports boys playing in girls' sports. He voted against the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, and he voted to allow boys in girls' bathrooms, boys in girls' locker rooms, boys in girls' sports. That's not right. Colin Allred should know the difference between boys and girls.
Damn.
That's the ad. That's the ad. It's like little ukulele. Boys are different than girls. No, Colin Allred doesn't even know that.
And boys are in locker rooms.
And this is running. This is absolutely running. Now the Colin Allred ads are all looking for he's going reproductive freedom. That's what they're running with. And Ted Cruz is kind of the flip side of that coin. Look at how radical their reproductive freedom talk is. They're putting boys in girls' locker rooms. So anyway, Kamala Harris is not doing well. And repeatedly there are warning signs for her campaign, and they're heeding them. Why they're demanding a second debate, why they're sending their surrogates to Virginia, New Hampshire, Minnesota to try and shore up states that they thought were in the bag. And now we're seeing Kamala Harris slipping even further in the biggest, most important swing states. And so, to circle back to the entire topic of this show, if Kamala Harris was winning, you wouldn't have people out there trying to spur on another assassination attempt, because we know exactly what is doing it. We know exactly what is prompting these people to take shots at the president. It is what we played earlier in this show, Kamala Harris saying he's an existential threat. An existential threat means that he poses a threat to your very existence. And if he is not taken out, you will not exist anymore.
Which is
that is what an existential threat is.
Right. I mean, could you imagine telling a bunch of people who are generally, I feel like a lot of liberals are really unhinged, especially with the whole identity politics thing that they've got going on. And if you start calling Donald Trump a threat to everything, they'll believe it. Right. I mean, the Democrats think when they say this stuff out loud on all the media that it's just words, right? And they don't carry weight. And they do, because your followers are essentially going to do what you ask them, right? I mean, how many attempts has been on Trump's life now? At least 2 that we know of, potentially 3, maybe more. And in this latest one, I'm shocked at the letter that the DOJ released. I'm shocked the DOJ released the letter, because we didn't get the trans manifesto for 4.5 years, but we got this 7-8 days after the attempt. Right. So
for sure.
Talk about slow walk versus fast walk on some of this evidence, and nobody's stopping. You can go turn the TV on right now. Go turn on CNN, go turn on MSNBC, go Scarborough, go listen to Maddow. They're still calling him a threat.
Oh, for sure.
When you call somebody a threat, people are going to act, and we've seen it. So where's their, do they have any sort of, is there anything inside them that says maybe I shouldn't be doing this? Right? Maybe we shouldn't be using these words.
You think there would be, but instead of that, this is what I woke up to. Again, full circle what we were talking about. This is what I woke up to with Morning Joe.
Do not call it a threat to democracy when Donald Trump says that he wants to execute the chairman of the Joint Chiefs for treason. Is that not a threat? Saying that your vice president deserves lynching, saying that to your legal counsel on January 6th, is that not a threat to democracy? Undermining Americans' confidence in voting? When you know, because the Wall Street Journal editorial page has been very clear, and I will say, have done the right thing repeatedly, calling out Donald Trump's lies when it comes to widespread election fraud. Is that not a threat to democracy? What exactly is a threat? What rises to the threat of democracy that we have ever seen in America since the Civil War, if what Donald Trump has done over the past 4 years does not? Please.
Oh my God.
Give us the permission structure. I know you're desperate for a permission structure not to vote for Kamala Harris and to get people to vote for Donald Trump. Anti-Trumpism, it is something. If they gave out gold medals for it, you'd get it. You would. But please, tell me. And this is a question Bill Maher was asking this weekend correctly. If this is not a threat to American democracy, what we have seen over the past 4 years, and if that is somehow hate speech that is riling up violent rhetoric, please tell me, define for me, what is a threat to American democracy? It's certainly not people going around speaking out against January the 6th.
Now, the threat to democracy is when a presidential candidate can't even walk on his own golf course without someone hiding in the bushes trying to shoot him.
Yeah.
Right? The threat to democracy is someone rallying in Western Pennsylvania, and he can't even get through 20 minutes of his speech without someone shooting him in the head. And the threat to democracy are the people like Joe Scarborough who can't accept. I mean, this is twofold. He knows that Kamala Harris is losing, and he's refusing to accept that this last ditch attempt to save her campaign, and it was the same one that Joe Biden was running with. Joe Biden literally stood in front of the American people and said, I wish I could take Donald Trump behind this gymnasium and beat the hell out of him. You want to talk about rhetoric?
Yeah.
Well, what does that say to someone who's in town when they know Trump is visiting? Oh, well, Joe Biden wishes he could take him out back and beat him up. I live right down the road from him, and I know exactly where he's going to be. I know exactly when he's going to golf, which we still haven't gotten an understanding of how they knew he was going to be there that day.
Nobody's even touched that. You notice that? It hasn't even come up. Is it going to show up in the next investigation that Congress is going to hold? And you want to talk about theft of democracy when Morning Joe runs the video of January 6th over a Donald Trump monologue on stuff to start it off, to portray him as some sort of supervillain who tried to take down America in a weekend. That's the real threat here.
Yeah.
Right. You're talking about a propaganda machine. This isn't even news. This is a propaganda machine who's in lockstep talking about everything that paints Donald Trump as the problem, the threat, something that needs to be handled. Right. And every time they say this, it's just not going to be the crazy lunatics that follow you. Imagine that if there's an opposing state level sponsor that doesn't like you, in Iran, that's like suddenly emboldened to go after Trump because nothing's going to happen to him. Or you get some sort of Venezuelan gang, or, just pick your bad guy out there, right? Yeah. Do they feel more empowered to start going after the president? And do they feel more empowered to go after our presidential elections later?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we know their playbook, right? Yeah. We know why they're doing this. This trying to feign outrage from Joe Scarborough, saying like, oh, well, if this isn't a threat to democracy, what is? Donald Trump, he's such a threat to democracy that he had the reins of power for 4 years and we're still voting. Right. Yeah. I mean, this notion, they actually believe. And part of this is Donald Trump's fault. Part of this is he jokingly was asked by Sean Hannity, what do you say to them? What do you say to the left saying that you're going to be a dictator, that you're going to rule by executive order? Trump said only on day one. It was a joke, saying he's going to fire a bunch of people. He's going to kick people out of government. The left has run with that and now said Donald Trump promises to be a dictator. Donald Trump promises to be a dictator. They take everything he says completely out of context.
That's the plan.
And it's by design. It's intentional. It's 100% intentional.
It's not just, this is the worst kind of dirty politics. This is, let's not forget that they leveraged the DOJ against the same guy too, right? So let's not forget they want to still throw him in jail. He could be in jail.
Oh yeah.
Right after the election, right?
Yeah.
He could be elected president, and in New York, they've got him thrown in old Sing Sing or wherever they're going to put him, right?
Yeah, Rikers Island. And when they say like, oh, well, we're not a threat to democracy, Donald Trump has faced 2, 3, or more that we don't know about assassination attempts. Yeah. And one of the leading Democrat causes going into the election was them pushing legislation. Oh, we just lost Josh. He'll come back. Was them pushing legislation to get rid of Donald Trump's Secret Service detail. The left has been trying to literally rescind Donald Trump's Secret Service detail. So not only are they riling up people using this rhetoric that they know will cause people to lash out, to take literal shots, not like narrative shots, literal shots at President Trump. And at the same time, they are trying to rescind his Secret Service detail.
Which is insane.
Yes.
Which is insane. And why? Because they created a kangaroo court, which gets him convicted on a joke of a crime, right? This is classic Gestapo style work here. Go after him, demonize him, create him as the boogeyman. It's amazing how quickly they've gone from making him a boogeyman to, essentially, they've come short of calling him the Antichrist at this point, right? They haven't gone that route yet, but let's give them time.
Yeah.
Right. We're 45 days out on this thing. What's the next step they're going to start dropping? Are they going to be actively calling, or is there going to be bounties out on people's heads? Right.
Bounties out on people's heads. A little segue. They're running out of things to say. And you remember they started going down this road with Mitt Romney, saying he was a Nazi.
Yeah,
And like everything we know about Mitt Romney now, how he's so like mushy, how he doesn't actually believe the things he claimed to believe. They tried to say he was the biggest threat to women's freedoms because he answered a question about hiring women, saying, "Oh yeah, I received whole binders full of women applicants." And they said, "Oh, he has binders full of women."
Well, women, yeah.
Never made sense. But they tried to do this to him. They tried to do it to Trump, and it didn't stick.
Yeah.
Because Trump, rather than running away and apologizes, said, "Oh, screw you. This is stupid. This is fake news." Right? So they have no choice but to ratchet up the temperature.
Even more.
Even more. They have
Romney
no choice
was on
but
their
to
side.
ratchet up even more.
He was on their side, and they ratcheted up against him.
Yes.
Which is crazy, right? And then you got somebody who's a true maverick, right? I love to use that word. They always give it to what's his face. But you've got a true maverick like Trump. So they have to take it. I mean, this is as far as they can take it, right? I mean, they does it go further here? Do they start openly calling for removing him from life? Right?
Yeah.
Do they start? There's a target on everybody in his circle right now because of these people. Right? And if they do end up getting him, and I pray for his safety every day.
Yeah.
Right? If they do get to him, it's going to cause a true destruction of our democracy if they kill the candidate.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
If
That
Kamala
will be the
Harris,
real threat.
if Kamala Harris is losing the election, which the polls suggest she is, and she were to somehow win because one of her inspired lunatics kills the nation's choice, I mean, we dodged that bullet quite literally.
Yeah. Yeah.
In Butler, Pennsylvania,
mm-hmm.
And they're still egging it on. And I think the American people realize that, Josh. I think they realize this.
Yeah,
I think they're starting to look at Kamala Harris's policies. Here's a clip from CNN calling out one of Kamala Harris's surrogates about the polls showing Americans not liking her policies.
Latest poll. And again, you know, I know people have their views of the polls, but this is a credible New York Times Siena College poll. They actually asked voters about policies from both Trump and Harris that they think could impact them in the future. And 45% of the voters say Trump's policies would actually help people like them versus just 37% for Harris. That's looking at the future, not just the past here. What do you say to that, Ian?
Well, again, there's been some Quinnipiac polls just over the last few days that suggest a different picture of the country, of people thinking that her economic or immigration or reproductive freedom plans would help them more.
You're muted.
So sorry. They asked people not just who you're going to vote for. They read out the policies. And they said, okay, which one of these are going to make your life better? Yeah. Things like no taxes on tips. Things like no taxes on overtime, which Donald Trump wants.
Yeah.
Right. And more people said, oh, that would make my life better. And you hear right there the Kamala Harris surrogate saying, oh, well, we think they actually really mesh with our position on reproductive freedom. That's all they have. That's all they have. That's all they have.
So low on the importance totem pole right now with people. What's really important is buying, $6 gallons of milk, going and seeing $9.99 cartons of eggs when you barely got $200 or $300 a month to help feed your children and your family. Right? Those are the real issues. When Donald Trump was pressed on what he can do to help lower prices, the first thing he says is a true and real answer. You lower energy prices because that trickles down. We know this kind of economy stuff works. We saw it. Reagan gave it to us, right? Bush floated through it. Bill Clinton, he's the one that really got to enjoy it, right? Because all those Reagan era policies helped him during his presidency.
Yeah.
And I mean, he gave real answers. Kamala Harris has yet to put an answer out there that I can understand or follow. I just don't know what she says most of the time. And all I can see now are commercials of her from the debate with a bunch of one-liners. Like
you saw that one?
Did. I've seen a bunch of them. I'm getting a whole bunch of them here in Colorado.
When I was Attorney General, I didn't ask if you're a Republican or Democrat. I just asked, do you need help?
Right.
No, when she was Attorney General of California, she kept black inmates in prison longer than they should have been, and she had to be, and she did that so the state could use them as cheap labor, and she had to be forced to release them by higher courts.
It's crazy. But she did come from a long line of slavers, so, or at least she came from slavers at one point. Donald Trump's the only one that doesn't have family that owns slaves. I mean,
Yeah.
what are they going to pull on him next, right? What are they
Yeah.
going to, Baron Trump is this, right? Are they going to start going after Melania? And right
they
now,
They did. They went after Melania last week for saying that she still wasn't over the first assassination attempt, and she couldn't help but think that there was some greater conspiracy at play because they're not releasing the details. And she was mocked by the left for it. She was mocked by the left for it. So they're going after her because they don't want it in the news. They don't want the American people to know that Donald Trump is getting shot at.
Yeah. I mean, man, I had a point here that I was going to make and totally slips on me because I was getting so angry about their rhetoric. All the stuff that keeps coming back, and it's not slowing down. I get up every morning. I start looking through the sites. Everything is still just painting him as like a complete and total ogre. I mean, at some point for Halloween, I imagine they're going to put memes out that puts horns on Trump at this point, right? They're losing everything. They've got nothing left. And this was the point. This is why I feel like Kamala is truly a throwaway candidate, because what they're doing right now is they're testing. This is the test bed for the next election for them, because now they know they can take a warm body that is created by the media, drop them in place of your candidate, and get close to 50%.
That no one.
That's it. That's all they got to do. And now it's the norm.
Yeah,
it's the norm.
It's the norm. Did you see this? This just came out. That Ryan Roth's bail was denied after the FBI discovered he was Google searching how to travel from Palm Beach County to Mexico. He was trying to flee the country.
Wow. So he's an actual escape risk, unlike Trump, who was told he couldn't go to Melania's mother's funeral, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, here's the thing, right? If Donald Trump loses the election, God forbid, and I don't think he will,
but
right?
He does.
And that the left wants to put you in prison. And the left is trying to get rid of your Secret Service so that the prison gangs can kill you. I can't imagine that Donald Trump doesn't just say, F this. I tried to help America. I'm out. Just boards on his plane, just says, fly me wherever.
It'll be like a Nelson Mandela thing,
yeah.
man. I mean, he'll be in political exile. And people usually who are in political exile come to the United States to be safe and free, right? And then now we've reached the point where we are a completely fascist government run by aristocrats.
Yeah.
That's the future, gang. Like it's one or the other. There's always those platitudes. This is the most important election ever. Gang, this might be the last election ever. I had been talking to some people out there, and they're people that keep their ear to the ground when it comes to things that might be really, really bad coming up. And they are seeing red flags from here until the January 20th or whenever the inauguration is next year, right? They are so worried that there are agencies on edge, right?
Yeah.
And there are agencies that are ignoring the kind of things that might pop up. So, I mean, it's vital. This is a huge election. I mean, no matter which way it breaks, I have really bad feelings about what's going to happen to us societally.
Yeah. But like here's Nate Silver came out with this just yesterday. 50-50 forecast means people should be making their contingency plans.
For what?
For what? What does that mean, Nate Silver? What does that mean? It's hard to, even something as innocuous as that. What does that mean? That between November 5th and January 20th, that's how long you have to try and take Trump out again? Like, what is the contingency plan?
Yeah.
And he makes it clear he's not talking about stocking up on ammo or food. So what is the contingency plan?
Yeah.
Oh, he says he wants the institutions to bolster and create the bulwarks to stop Trump from tearing them down. Even when he's trying to say I'm not suggesting Trump's a threat to democracy, he then says, oh, make contingency plans to stop him from destroying democracy. So it's so pathetic.
So are they fomenting revolution there? I mean, what is he asking for? When you see headlines like that, people immediately just react to what they see, and then that's what they think. We've talked about it before, how headlines lead people's thought processes, and low information liberal voters, they just believe what shows up and pops up on their phone. So that stuff, that's the stuff that's dangerous to democracy, right? Putting stories out like that. But
100%, that's 100% dangerous to democracy.
Well, Scarborough will probably report on this, right? He might say the same things. Like, this might be part of the playbook at this point.
Yeah.
Because if they know they're going down, they have to come up with something else. And does that mean the contingency plan?
Oh, this is
and what does that mean?
This is what Trump just put out. Independents reject Kamala's horrible policies. New York Times, Siena, 42% of her policy said her policies would hurt them.
Good Lord. With only 30% help, that doesn't look good for you if you're running a campaign, right? You're looking at that and you're going.
Also, this is hilarious.
Buying groceries under Kamala
versus buying groceries under Trump. I don't know what's going on with the hippos. I've been seeing the hippos.
I don't know. They're people. They're adorable.
They're adorable
until they grow up and bite you in half.
They're also the most dangerous animal on the planet
by far. The only thing that kills more people is mosquitoes.
Yeah. Yes. If you happen to be anywhere near hippos, they are the most dangerous thing that could ever happen to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently this is the baby hippo that's become a meme.
Oh, I would like to point out, we said a few weeks in this show that Donald Trump needed to look more like the grandpa. He needed those kids up on stage.
Mm-hmm. He brought his granddaughter on stage.
And I don't want to say they're listening to us, but I'm glad at least somebody got the memo.
Yeah.
Because when the little kids are out there and they say things like "Make America Great Again" and "Vote for Grandpa," suddenly Donald Trump doesn't look like that giant ogre that he's been projected in all of the comics that they write, all those political cartoons and satires, right? Now he looks like a sweet grandpa who loves his baby granddaughter and his grandson, right? And that's something Kamala can't do.
Oh, and if you dare say that, they say it's attack on her womanhood. What she need to have kids? No, but she can't say it. She can't say it,
and she can't appear that way, right? And she can't have a kid on her lap.
That's what ultimately got JD Vance into a little trouble when they all that like, oh, childless cat ladies, oh, they don't have kids, so they don't really care about the country. While you don't want to go that far, there is truth to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am voting for Trump because I want the country that my children to inherit to resemble the country that I grew up in.
Yeah.
Right. That my parents grew up in. Kamala Harris, she has adopted children and she says that she loves them dearly, and that's nice. But it's harder for her to make that argument, right? That's not why she's doing it. And that's part of, and we talked about this in the podcast before, the Hillary Clinton book, It Takes a Village. The left's idea of like raising kids isn't that like you have an obligation to raise your own children. It's that no, the minute you get 50% plus one majority in a town, in a city, in a country, your obligation is to raise every kid.
Yeah.
Right. So
Communist Manifesto stuff there.
That's the flip side of it. While she might not be able to say personally that she's doing this for her kids or her grandkids, she believes that by running for president and by wielding the levers of power, she can force herself onto everyone's children and how their children are raised. Which is even crazier. It's even crazier.
Yeah. It's just wild, man. And we're going to get more of it. We're only 45-ish days out. I mean, I don't even know how many days until the election. I thought it was like 45 or so. It might have been yesterday, but
a month and a half.
It's getting close. Like, this is crunch time. This is when they start throwing the punches, right? We're deep into the round, right? The bell rung a couple months ago. The bell actually rung under Joe Biden, and somehow they switched a fighter. It's like a switch hitter, but they got a switch fighter in, which is amazing, right? Because Donald Trump had to come up with two campaigns, right?
Yeah. Donald Trump thought he was doing a boxing match and knocks out his opponent, and actually knows it's a tag team match. We're tagging her in, which is crazy.
WWE, right?
Yeah. It's a Royal Rumble. Rumble. They're just gonna keep every 5 minutes. Right. New person comes on stage, right?
No, a chair comes flying in.
God,
you know? Hey, I've watched a lot of wrestling in my time, so I know.
But that's what they're doing. Like, It's like Super Smash Brothers. Like a new enemy appears, right? Donald Trump beat the first one. Like, oh, now we got a new one for you.
And your health bar just keeps getting lower because that's the goal, right? Beat him up, beat him up, beat him up, beat him up, beat him up in the news, beat him up on the economy, beat him up on every lie you can imagine. And when that's not enough, let's tell people he's such a threat that they should go out there and try to kill him.
Yeah.
That's the plan, right? Because that's where we're left. That's what they're left with.
And if we dare point out the obvious, like let's you have the you lost it. Can you re-add the letter?
Oh yeah, I'll bring that.
Because when you dropped off, it fell off. The letter from this Trump assassin that the FBI released, and we don't know if this is the entire letter.
No,
it seems like it might keep going.
So if
Josh says he can read that.
So I can. I'm going to see it from my. So at the very, very top up here in the upper right hand corner, there's a 1. So there are several pages to this, and all we get right now is this top page. So this is what. How do you pronounce his last name? What did we finally come up on?
I don't know. Is it Ruth or Routh?
I'll just go with Ruth for now. We'll make a correction if we have to on the name.
No, he doesn't. He deserves nothing. He deserves nothing.
You're right. You're right. But you know how we're
at the very least, if mispronouncing his name causes him, because the whole purpose of this is to become famous, right?
Yeah.
Imagine trying to kill someone to become famous, and the whole world mispronounces your name.
I'm going to yield the point. I'm going to yield the point on that one. I'm going to yield the point on that. I'll yield. But here it is, dear world. This was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump. That is the first sentence. Let that sink in.
So the narrative that he was there to shoot someone else, which the left has tried to say that he wasn't there for Trump, that's gone.
Almost fact checked on. If we go back, I'm sure people are making the claim, right? But anyway, he goes there, and it starts again with, "But I am sorry, I failed you." So which time was this? Was this the first time he tried this, or is this a letter for another time? Right?
Did he scribble this in his car while he was driving? We don't know the exact timeline, but we know that this isn't after he was caught. This is before he was caught.
House.
Is that it was at his house? Then
I thought it was at his house, but
if it was at his house, then did he try previously? Did he show up at that golf course and Trump wasn't there? And he's beating himself up like, I tried to take the shot, he wasn't there. I keep going.
All right. So I tried my best and gave it all the gumption I could muster. It is up to you now to finish the job, semicolon, and I will offer $150,000 to whomever can complete the job.
How? He only makes $3,000 a month.
Unless
that's the next question. Like where is he getting this money from? Or is he that crazy?
Or he's got help.
Yeah, well, or he's got financiers.
Or he's got help. Or there's people out there because he's got signal, right? He was talking to people that we have no idea what he was saying. But anyway, he says, I will offer $150,000 to whoever can complete the job, which is wild. Everyone across the globe, from the youngest to the oldest, know that Trump is unfit to be anything. His handwriting is really hard to read, gang. Like it's pretty wild. Much less a U.S. president. U.S. presidents must, at bare minimum, embody the moral fabric that is America and be kind, caring, and selfless, and always stand for humanity. Trump fails to understand any of, and then it stops because they haven't given us page 2. I haven't seen page 3. I count 4 pages. If you get really, really, really zoomed in on this in the upper right-hand corner, you can start to see where the pages come apart. And when you roll it out, it looks about 4 pages. You know, that's a guess, right? That's just a little bit of a guess. And I mean, it's a really convenient letter, Max. I've never known assassins to really write letters, or, you know, even suicide letters. Like anybody that's about to do something that causes great grievous harm rarely leave an actual letter.
Yeah.
And if this was on
manifesto, they're basically manifestos.
But we don't see him often. And did he actually write this? Like, there's so much I want to know. When they started investigating this, was this stuff he was supposed to plant, or is this stuff he created? I mean, these are questions the FBI and the Secret Service must ask themselves if they haven't. And it's usually on the list, right? Because we want to know if he acted alone. Because if he didn't act alone, did he dictate this?
I'm reading the charging documents. That a civilian witness that says that Ruth had dropped off a box at his residence several months ago, And after learning about the assassination attempt, the witness opened the box and he found that the box contained ammunition, a metal pipe, miscellaneous building materials, tools, 4 phones, and various letters. One handwritten letter addressed to the world stated, which what you just read. The witness took a photograph of the first page of the letter, which is shown below. So this is actually from the witness. So where's the rest of the letter?
And there's 4 phones there. That they would
4
call that
phones?
a gold line of information if you
4
know what
phones?
you're doing.
Josh, right now I have 2 phones, and only because I haven't gotten around to sending the old one back for a rebate, right? I have never, ever had 4 phones in my possession that worked at the same time, that didn't have a cracked screen.
I know
Like
people.
that's crazy.
With 2, a work phone and your phone, right? Perfectly normal these days.
And these are phones that he put in a box to save for later.
Yes.
So he also has a phone, presumably his own phone. So he has 5 working.
That sounds like somebody that's trying to obfuscate what they're doing on the internet, or at least talking to people. And are there pictures on these phones? Like, I want to start going through data on all these phones. I want to see the comms. The FBI, the CIA, NSA, they have the power to get in these things, right? For the most part. But he could have been on signal with all of them, right? I mean, if there is deep encryption.
Yeah.
And if he's running like that, he's running like an operator. Not like a really good operator, but he's an actor at this point. He's in a theater operating.
It was completely confirmed. It was an SKS rifle.
Okay, and which
we had thought that might be
start, right?
Yeah. Well, I thought when we didn't have a good picture, I thought it might be a Saiga rifle sporter configuration. But as more pictures came out, it was pretty clear it was SKS rifle. They're still demonizing it's an AK style, which it absolutely is not.
No, and that's just for the gun grab crowd, right? They're just that's all that's for.
Yeah,
because they're still trying to use this like a dovetail thing. It's like now we need more gun control of people like him because they went after the president, and we told them to go after the president, so it's kind of a win for them, right?
I wonder where does this end? And this is a question we've asked a couple times because there have been a couple assassination attempts, but seeing KJP from the podium, I think we played the clip last week of Ducey saying, like, when are you going to stop? How many times does Donald Trump need to be shot at before you stop demonizing him? And she said that question was so dangerous. No, what's dangerous is that she's using the pulpit, she's using the lectern to spur on these acts of violence. I mean, this isn't a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. The left is deliberately running a campaign to try and get independents and never Trump conservatives to vote for Kamala Harris by saying that he's immoral, that he is just a bad person. America deserves better. That's their narrative. And we just saw in this letter from the Trump assassin number 2 that he is lockstep with that, right? He wrote a book, which we covered last week. He wrote a book apologizing to the nation of Iran, encouraging Iran to assassinate Trump, and actually saying that if Iran wants to, they can assassinate him as well, which is crazy. All in the news, we've heard the last couple of weeks that Iran has been trying to assassinate Trump. I mean, like, it's crazy to think that this nobody could have ever been connected with an Iranian assassination plot, right? Like, the Iranians did not read his book and say, oh, wow, this guy has invited us to assassinate Trump. Let's help him. But it's not the craziest idea.
No, because remember back in the day when they were in chat rooms trying to get people into Al Qaeda and all that stuff, they're recruiting from the internet, right? And we still can't get into have they been to the phone of the first assassination attempt? Are there connections between the first and the second? Are there connections from the first to stuff we haven't seen?
Yeah.
And are there plans?
I'm still waiting to know why the Las Vegas shooter killed all those people. Like,
it's
unbelievable,
dude. Yeah.
It's amazing how things just get memory hold and you forget about them. You go on with your life. And the news cycle used to be when I looked it up, when Ronald Reagan was shot, right, by what's his name? I completely forget his name. I just let him out of prison.
I know what you're talking about. Reagan was shot by Brady was the guy that got shot because of the Brady bill,
Yeah.
because he was one of the Secret Service agents. Sirhan was that was
Hinckley, John Hinckley Jr.
Hinckley Jr.
Because they just released him for prison. When he was shot by John Hinckley Jr., the news cycle talked about Reagan's assassination survival for weeks.
Yeah.
He got like a 20 to 30 point bump in approval ratings.
Yeah.
Right. So when we were all looking at the Trump assassination attempt, saying his first president is Reagan to be shot, he's going to get a bump. What did the media do? We talked about it in real time. Time magazine said that they were going to use the picture of Donald Trump like this. And then they changed it because they didn't want to paint Donald Trump in a nice light. The media stopped talking about it. Joe Biden dropped out days after the RNC ended to try and mute the RNC bump, but also to stop people talking about the assassination attempt. And we just had a debate. Well, looks like it'll be the only debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, where at no point did one of the moderators ask about the one candidate on stage taking a bullet to the head.
Yeah. Only one of them is bled for this country, and it's not Kamala Harris.
So on the one hand, the media is refusing to talk about it. But Joe Scarborough can't help it because he hates that he's being blamed for it. Rightly so. You can never 100% know who caused someone to be radicalized, but you can't blame any single raindrop for the flood. Fine. It is undeniable that Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski, Morning Joe, MSNBC have played a huge role in radicalizing, at the very least, the second attempted assassination. Assassin against Donald Trump. So they can't accept it. They won't say mea culpa. We saw it. Joe Biden trotted out to the Resolute desk in the White House, and he said, we need to lower the temperature in this country. And like, oh, wow, they're going to stop trying to egg on people to shoot Trump. And then within hours, his surrogates, his people were out saying, oh, no, we're talking about Trump. Trump needs to lower the rhetoric.
Yeah, he's the one that's got to stop.
Yeah, they were victim blaming.
Yeah.
They're saying when their idea of lowering the rhetoric was Donald Trump needs to stop saying the stuff that's getting him shot, which is crazy.
Yeah, because they're the abusers. I mean, you see it, right? I hurt you. I hurt you. It's your fault. You need to stop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's classic victim blaming,
domestic
man.
abuse, victim blaming 101. Right. Yeah.
But again, I think it goes back. They know that this is a throwaway candidate, most likely, but they know that their propaganda machine is working. They're just waiting for the next election. If they win this one, great, right? They're going to love it because the plans will just be put off by 4 years.
Yeah.
But they know next year they're going to be able to, or at least the next cycle, they're going to be able to do it.
That no one, I just watched Nancy Pelosi saying something like, oh, we had an open primary. Anyone could throw their name in,
know.
And no one did. And you're like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? You coronated Kamala Harris immediately.
Yeah.
And you'll remember, we talked about this on the show weeks ago. The first letter that Joe Biden sent out didn't say, I'm endorsing Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
It took hours for his team to release that, oh no, he is endorsing Kamala Harris. So while we suspected that letter had a gun to Joe Biden's head, either literal or figurative, right? Like, here, sign this letter or else.
Or else.
He wouldn't endorse her in the gun to your head letter. And it took a surrogate, his team, to say, oh no, he endorses her. The social media managers, oh no, he endorses her too. And then all of a sudden, he's forced to do it. He's forced to do it anyway.
Threats had to be pretty extreme for him to take that instantaneous about face. And I think maybe at the time they didn't have somebody picked yet, right? They were still trying to figure out who that might be. And there may have been an internal argument about whether it was going to be Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom. You know, pick your top end liberal on that. Because
Gavin Newsom had a funny comment the other day on a podcast. I think it was on Pod Save America, where he said, I've been told that I have to say this was an open process, which lets you know what he thinks about it, right?
Yeah.
He knows what the talking points are. He knows what he's supposed to say. And rather than following the talking points, he basically said, I've been told to say that it was completely fair for Kamala Harris to be coronated. So he's obviously a little bit salty. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said that.
Yeah. And he probably wasn't picked this time because why waste him
Yeah.
on what
Yeah.
would be a throwaway election, right? You
Yeah.
don't want to. Kamala wasn't picked because she was the A-list candidate. She was the one that if she loses, the Democrats lose the least with her,
Yeah.
right? You don't want to throw a Gavin Newsom into what could be a potentially losing race and lose him as a candidate because he probably wouldn't run again in 4 years, right?
Absolutely not.
They'd be going on to AOC most likely, right? They're setting up an AOC Newsom ticket. I envision that in 28.
I don't think
So,
they're going to do that.
I think she's going to be coordinated because they're playing the game, Max. They're in the game. They're in that special group of people, right? Because there were elitists who got Joe Biden kicked out, right?
Yeah.
Who's that group? Who's that cabal of people that are calling all those shots?
Yeah. Channy says on Rumble, seen speculation that the cackles Kamala Harris endorsement was Joe spitting in the face of those that kicked him out. I've seen that rumor. I've heard that rumor too, that the Biden family was at the very least okay with the gun to their head demand because he knew it would actually be bad. I've seen it both ways, that he was forced to do it and that he said, okay, screw you. You're going to push me out. Then you're stuck with her.
And there's another little piece here, and I wonder how it's going to play in because P. Diddy was recently arrested, right? The guy that I thought was West Coast Epstein, right? And they've been talking about the evidence dude has for his freak parties and who the kind of leverage he might have on celebrities, former presidents. And it makes me wonder if any of that's going to come out, right? Especially in an election year and you're facing potentially, the rest of your life in prison.
Yeah.
Like what starts making its way? Because I really do think that these people are somebody's giving them marching orders. Somebody's telling them what to
we
say.
know who's giving them marching orders. Even if you can't prove an international criminal conspiracy, just by the simple virtue of turning on your television set, we know exactly what's happening here. You can't tell the American people for 10 straight years, for a decade, right? We're going on a decade, right? 2015 to 2024, going on a decade, that Donald Trump will destroy America. It doesn't matter that he didn't do it, right? For almost a decade, they've been spewing this propaganda. Frankly, I am shocked it took 9 years for someone to actually shoot at Trump. I'm shocked. I don't support it. I don't endorse it.
Yeah.
But seeing it for what it is, I'm shocked it took 9 years, for at the very least, for them to spur on one of the crazies. Now, with that said, Steve Scalise did get shot.
Yeah,
so just because the assassin didn't hit Trump doesn't mean that the rhetoric didn't spur someone on years ago, right? That's another thing that kind of got memory hold.
Yeah, and they're fomenting it, right? I mean, it's starting to escalate. And if there are people who are being programmed to go out and have marching orders, they're going to do it, and it's going to start. And we've seen it. They've been completely brainwashed. And people say there's no way that they've been brainwashed. All they've seen is just commercials on TV. They're doing it because Donald Trump really is that kind of threat. And it's no, you have brainwashed these people. Every time they look at social media, they see anti-Trump stuff, right? People couldn't talk to them about Trump in the workplace because they could get fired for it. They couldn't talk about it on social media platforms because they'd get banned for it. All you get is this constant feed of how he is the devil and he must be stopped.
Yeah.
When they use language like that, we know what they mean. And now we know that the end game, right? They've got to get it.
What did they think would happen? And that Joe Scarborough clip we played at the very beginning, earlier, is kind of a Macbeth kind of situation. Methinks the lady doth protest too much. That was 3 minutes. I saw some clips online that were 5 minutes of him aghast that anyone could point the finger in his direction at spurring on an assassin, at encouraging an assassin. Right? He's aghast. Couldn't possibly. He isn't saying that he's wrong. He's saying if we can't call Trump a threat to democracy, who can we call it? Right? He's doubling down, tripling down.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I don't think it's over. Unfortunately, I don't think this is going to be the end. And realize we are a month and a half away. We've never had an election in this country without some kind of black swan October surprise, something that completely changes the race entirely. So I like to joke this: if this was television, the writer's room is insane. If
Yeah.
this is a
Yeah.
television show,
Oh my God, you couldn't write it.
you couldn't write it. You couldn't write this television show. But just realize something else is going to happen. There is 0% chance that Donald Trump and Kamala Harris spend the next month and a half without something really serious affecting the race. I'll give you the final word.
Yeah, keep your head on a swivel, gang, because I really do feel like that if they can't get what they want, they're going to make something happen. And there's only days until that happens. We're talking about 45 days, a month and a half. And if they're willing to change out their candidate in the middle of a race, what else are they willing to do against the will of the people?
Yeah.
That's not the end here.
They are completely okay with someone being president who no one voted for. Those people are, someone like that is incredibly dangerous.
That's a profound statement, right?
All right. Well, that's it for this edition of the podcast. If you like the podcast, subscribe. Check out the audio edition of the podcast. All those fun things. Links are in the description. If you're watching us on Twitter or X, we're also on Rumble, YouTube, so check us out there. That's it for this edition of the podcast. My name is Max McGuire.
I'm Josh Hammerling.
Remember, the fight to take back the country is not over yet, but the only way we win is if we all stand up and fight together. See you next time.
See ya.